welcome everyone to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst radio network. All past shows are archived. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. If you'd like to send a question or comment in, you can do so at dj@ArtistFirst.com. And now here they are, the co-hosts, Margaret and Michael Lyons.
Thank you, Z-Man. A wonderful introduction. And yes, you are listening to The Soul of the Everyman. And I'm one of your hosts, Margaret.
Oh, I am. I'm the other host.
Wake up.
Hey, I was doing something. And I'm your other host, Michael. And tonight, our topic for tonight's show, the Soul of the Everyman show of the Everyman Soul, is life. And we had a show about life, but this one's going to be a different show about life. This is life not for the faint of heart.
Indeed. And it's interesting because we are kind of taking it from a completely different viewpoint. If you basically look at your life and say, okay, I came down here for a purpose. There is a focus to my life. And this is going off of other discussions we've had about NDEs, etc., where there is a life review.
Near-death experience, in case anyone doesn't know, right?
Okay, sorry. And during the life review, after you have died and gone through the tunnel, there is a point where you enter into a space of light, and you wind up looking back through your entire life that you've lived. And a couple people I know that have gone through this said basically they are seeing their life unfold before them in a 360 manner. And they get to see other perspectives, not just their own. It's not just seeing it through their eyes, but seeing how it reflected back through other people and what they felt about same experiences that were happening, their own perspectives, et cetera, et cetera. So it brings you to a point of looking at your life and realizing that, wait a minute, they had said, they were given a choice. Do you want to go back down? Or would you rather just stay here? Or some divine intervention comes in and says, you're not done yet.
Yeah, I oftentimes aren't given the choice. You're like, I want to stay. Like, sorry, not today.
But there are some that have been given that choice.
Yes.
But they choose to go down because they say, I'm not done yet.
Right.
I haven't completed what I wanted to do in this particular life. So taking that as a foundation for the statement that life is not for the faint of heart.
Right. I mean, and just to expand on that, I mean, you, in essence, your the statement that I'm not done yet reflects the fact that you do have something to do, and that lots of people do feel that their lives are purposeless. But I think that that's something that you come to through perhaps being overburdened or being put into a circumstance where you feel overwhelmed or you feel as though you're not making a difference, you're not achieving your goals. And if you not very few of us actually have an NDE, but you can do your own sort of DE or you don't have to nearly die to review your life. You have to take a moment, a breath, sit back, go into a meditative state, try to even not necessarily go say, well, I'm going to go back to like the second day after my 4th birthday when something at XYZ happened, which could happen in a life review. And in an NDE, you get that specific, but
you do get that specific.
But you have the opportunity to take 2 things into your mind. Put yourself into a space where you're looking back, reflecting, and realize that even though you may not recall it at this particular moment, there were 2 choices made. You chose to, let's say, incarnate, to become part of this world, this common dream the common dream. You chose that, and you also chose a mission. Let's just put it that way.
A purpose.
A purpose. And you probably, I'll speak for myself, I don't necessarily recall that choice of coming down and the choice of the mission. But if you open yourself, even here, even through all the veils between us and the Spirit, us and God, you can open yourself and find the echo of your purpose. You can find it in what gives you, Joseph Campbell, follow your bliss. What gives you fulfillment? It's not necessarily pleasure. Well, that's what people have somewhat equated it to. Follow your pleasure. Well, that's fun for a while, and then you end up, passed out in an alley somewhere. But if you follow your true bliss, you follow what fulfills you. It may be the hardest thing you ever do in your physical life, but it fulfills you. That is sort of you're probably getting close to following your mission, your idea of what you actually came down here for, and the idea is when you're in that NDE, and you say I have to go back because I'm not done yet. I didn't finish, or I don't feel that I've finished what I started.
Right. There was also descriptions of almost like a moment where you're kind of looking at different timelines, and this is what it looks like if I go back, and this is what it looks like if I don't. And there was one mother who said she had that and could not leave her children because what she saw them going into without her there, she was very upset about. So she's like, no, I'm going back, even though it was going to be very difficult. And the body is going to need some time to recover. But I'm going off on a tangent. If we go back to looking at this as a foundation where you agree to come down and there is a focus to your life at that point. And I think it's Greek mythology. You have to drink the waters of forgetfulness.
Yes.
Before you come down here. Otherwise, you'll never want to stay down here once you're down here.
Right, the waters of forgetfulness. But I think that wonderful metaphor is also a way of letting us understand that when we come here, we come as a unique incarnation of an eternal spirit.
Yes.
So we are, if you look at you, the vast, everlasting you, the piece of you which is able to incarnate is very similar in many ways to, we've used the analogy before of Flatland, where that wonderful story where a 3-dimensional being appears in a 2-dimensional space. So it's just a circle, even though it's a giant, vast being which has much more to it. Only the part that can be perceived down here in this physical universe is a very, very finite piece of you. So the forgetting is you forget your vastness, you forget your infiniteness, you forget much of what you may have learned before, though we all have met people who we consider the old idea of an old soul. Well, you recognize that energy because that energy, even in an infant, shows somebody who's done, has gone around this dryer drum a few times. Come down here, incarnated in the small, in the physical, with a mission, with something to do, something to learn. And so forgetting is important, but, kind of realizing that you can't do a lot of what you have to do. The Buddhists would say to progress into a higher form of life from the lowest to the highest, you must incarnate and reincarnate and go through the cycle again and again, because in essence, where you change is here. You don't change. None of us change in the eternal. It's kind of like, an oxymoron, if you will. You can't change if you're eternal. You have to come here into the physical to experience time and privation and stress and worry and limitations on what you can do and what you can't do, and experience fatigue and everything else that's part of here. All the wonderful, horrible things it is to be here.
To be human.
Yes.
Yeah, and to sort of look at it in terms of different hues of being.
But be able to have love, to have interaction, to have relationship. Those are all things that happen here. There's a different kind of love, a different kind of relationship there. But you come here with a mission to learn something. You come here limited, forgetful, and the reason our premise of life is not for the faint of heart is it's hard to do things down here.
Mm-hmm.
Very darn difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you make that contract, and I think none of us know where that contract is, but at some point we said, yes, I want to do that. I'm going to do it down there. We always say down there, but it's in the physical, in that small, limited space that we call the universe. And I'm going to do it until I feel it's done, or until, somebody clunks me on the back of the head with a wrench.
Even still, you don't leave unless you have to go.
Yes.
Nothing in this sweet world will take you out unless you have to go. But yes, so if you look at this as your foundation of incarnation, living your life, incarnating in this point in space and time, and you acknowledge that there's a focus to your life, that shifts everything, because the state down here wants to basically tell you, hey, you just happened, nothing special, and you might as well just enjoy yourself while you're down here, because life is short.
Life is short.
And the response is, yes, life is short, and I have a purpose. I have a focus. There was something that I had agreed with God that I need to look at down here. And it's usually not what the world thinks you should do. Only in your heart you know that something there in your heart tells you, this is where I have to put my feet. I don't know why. This is where I have to put my hand. I don't know why. But it rings true to me. My heart says yes.
Mm.
And you can't deny when your heart says yes. You got to follow those, I would like to say impulses, but it's more than that. It's a force inside of you. Pushes you. You know that you cannot leave here unless you put a hand to this. And it's amazing once you start walking that path.
Mm. And there's two things there. One, absolutely, you that's sort of the follow your bliss, but follow those heart echoes. And no one said it'll be easy. Oftentimes, the heart echo path is a very hard path. It can be, life is short, but that just means you don't have a lot of time to get anything done. You've got to, don't waste your time not following your bliss, not following your mission. There'll be plenty of pleasure along the way. In fact, probably more than you would get in almost any other endeavor, because your heart, your soul, your spirit, and your body are unified when you're following your path
First of purpose.
path of purpose. The other part, the other thing that's very important is that to figure it out. Again, we're in this limited space where we have a lot of noise, a lot of people telling us what to do, Madison Avenue telling us what to do, people saying, well, don't do that, you'll never make any money, blah, 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 all these things. At the end of the day, it takes courage, amazing amounts of plurals, amazing amount of plurals, amazing amounts of courage to follow your path. In fact, there are, many sort of junctures in your life, some sort of paths of divergence. The old Robert Frost line: "I took the path less traveled upon."
Least traveled.
Exactly. The idea is at these junctures in your life when you can go left or right, just to pick a direction, up or down. You have to ask your heart which way, and that may not be the way that everybody else is saying. Well, no, don't want to become a dancer. There's no money in that. Go be a doctor, a lawyer, or something, like accountant. But if the heart echo is there for the artist, for the house painter, whatever it is that makes you fulfills you, or that appears to fulfill you, when you take that choice, which is the least traveled road, which looks like it's going to be a lot of work and not make you any money, you're not going to get anywhere, and you're never going to amount to anything. The courage is to not pay attention to those external voices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the external voices will always want to give their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I find that amusing, actually, because they usually forget that they gave their opinion 5 minutes later. It's that important to them. But it's your life that you're discussing, and it should really, truly be first concern for you.
Mm.
Because the idea of you're leaving this world, and you haven't come upon a place or a pathway that allows your heart and your mind and your soul, as well as your body, to fly free, explore. I think that's why, as small children, we encourage them to play, because in that exercise of play, you explore many things, and you are so completely engaged in what you are doing. And as parents, of course, you try to help the child understand that you must have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Let us complete the task that you set yourself to. But with children, it's very easy, because it's like, oh, this is amazing. Oh, look, it does this, it does that. Color and texture, and complete immersion happens. There's no double thinking, whether or not you should put doubting, I guess is the word I'm looking for. You don't have a doubt that whether or not you should put this block on top of another, or string this together, or...
Right.
It's a wonderful thing. But coming back, bringing that forward into your adulthood, following your pathway. Yes, it takes a lot of courage, because I personally, this is my own viewpoint, I personally believe that you're here to learn what it means to love unconditionally. And that is a scary thing.
Mm.
Because when you love, you have to make yourself vulnerable. And when you are vulnerable, it can be a joyful experience, or you can be disappointed. And those emotions are so close to your soul that intuitively you do strive for that joyful experience. Learning how to handle disappointment is one of the major things we learn down here. But there's a part of you that knows that you can be hurt. So do you take a chance? Or do you just, no, it's too painful, I can't do that? You know, are your comfort zones more important at this point than taking a step out of what you think you know? And maybe being hurt, or maybe having a wonderful experience.
Well, and I would emphasize that and say there's an even finer point here, is that sometimes you're here to learn about hurt, or about disappointment, or about failure. Our life missions here have very little to do with making money or having a fast car or the biggest house and all those other things. Those are the things that we kind of think we want, and maybe we do want them. They're fine things to have. But at the end of the day, life missions are about relationships. They're about, perhaps doing something with your life, which has, which in essence puts your personal experience and subsumes it to the personal experiences of many others. You may live a life of service or sacrifice, and this can still be an incredibly fulfilling life, but it takes courage. People can say to you, the old, I think we mentioned it 2 or 3 episodes ago, "It's a Wonderful Life." This was a story of a man who thought that his life that all of his ambitions, and he had many, many ambitions. He wanted to be this and that and the other thing, and all of his ambitions came to naught. And he saw everyone else around him fulfilling their life goals and going off and being this sort of hero and being this sort of success and so on. And he felt at some point that his life had been a waste, or had been sort of never able to reach the goals he thought he wanted. But in fact, the mission that particular life was to learn that even serving and even just being the vehicle by which someone else accomplishes is something we have to learn. You incarnate from the vast eternal you into a very finite time. Maybe you're here for a few years, maybe you're here for 100, but in the perspective of the vast eternalness of existence, it's like a firefly flicking. You're there. There's a out brief candle. It's just a light in the darkness, and then it's snuffed out. So during that brief time of light, you have to learn maybe 1 or 2 things. Those things could be hard things. They could be learning to let your child go. Learning that love is sometimes painful, and sacrifice, and understanding that no matter how much you want someone to live, they have to die, and you have to be able to help them do it. That's a hard thing. And it isn't that all life goals are that hard, but you might run into a life where you have to do those sorts of things. Those are still valid, wonderful purposes. It doesn't mean that they're easy, or that they look glamorous, or that everyone's going to be, oh, I want to be that person. No, people look at you and go, I don't ever want to be that person. But someday it'll be you. Someday you will have to learn that bit if you haven't already. And so you have those lives. That's where the courage comes in. The life where you had to come down and learn how to be the Queen of Egypt, that was a great life, And people get that one out of the way like really early, and then they're like, well, I want the next life where I learn to be the president of the world. Well, no, the next life is where you learn to like slice tomatoes on a migrant farm in the middle of Calcutta. I don't know, I like that one. But you get the old Forrest Gump. Life is like a bowl of chocolates or whatever the heck it is, or cherries, or I forget the analogy. The point is, you don't know what you're going to necessarily get, and you have to be all right with that. Some of the courage is that you may have known when you signed your contract, this is what I'm going down for, what I think I'm going down for. But guess what? Sometimes you get the old, mission, hey, plot twist, mission changed. Now you've got to do something different because you become part of someone else's mission. And then you have to do something, follow your bliss with another person. And that person may have a hard path, and you may be here to help them. And that may be very, very, very difficult and require a lot of courage.
Right.
And, the other thing is that we have to be wary of being too simplistic, because you can say, well, I came down for this goal, but hey, our divine creator may have a few other things he wants us to learn. Hey, as long as you're down there, I got a couple other 500 things I want you to learn. So, once you've signed on, it's like you've signed on, you've signed your papers. Yes, I will be in the life army this year or these 100 years. Oh, okay. Well, guess what? We don't need any more dishwashers, but we need some. We need this guy down there right now. That's what you're going to do. Your part of your courage is that you have to also be open to having new, unforeseen paths that you have to pick up and maybe run with for a long time.
Yes. Now the interweaving of destinies. Was it the three fates?
Ah.
And it has to do with where your life thread is being woven into. And sometimes you are woven very intimately with another thread. You've got to follow it through. And maybe the only thing you ever agreed to was to help. But you have no idea what is in store for you. Because he who does weave reality has many dimensions that he has access to. So the dimensions of your soul, the interweaving certain qualities into you, because you're going to need them when this bump in the road happens. And then maybe you need something else as you go further down, because you're not done yet. So the question always is, are you actively going to participate, or aren't you? Because frankly, it's all unfolding right before your eyes. And every given moment we have the ability to say yes or no. That is the only thing you have down here.
That's the exact point.
Mm-hmm. Do you agree that you will participate in this moment? Painful though it may be. Will you be willing to walk through, because you are a vital part of another's experience? Are you willing to embrace that? And witness, and really witness what this other life is about to undergo?
Yeah, and that may be really the when we come to the crux of the matter, and it's simplistic to say that you sign up for a mission. I mean, that's one way of thinking about it, and it's a good way to think about it. But in fact, we may say to ourselves, this is our purpose, this is what we want to do, this is what gives us bliss. But you may have to learn your whole life experiences that even though you want to do something, you have to choose not to. Because the idea of free will down here is that you do, because of the interweaving, because of the chances that you take coming down here, because life is not certain and nothing is written in stone. The future is unknowable. So events happen. Things happen. People come into your life unexpectedly. Their weaving messes up your weaving, and all of a sudden you have a tangled knot, or you have a wonderful tapestry. Who knows? Your ability to choose is perhaps the most paramount thing, because you can choose, as you said, to participate, or you can choose not to.
Mm-hmm. And that is pretty much what we saw when we were in the pediatric cancer wards. Every parent there was given the choice. are you going to participate in this moment with your child, helping them? Or are you basically going to run by focusing on something that will take you away from your child so that you can say, I am doing something useful?
And perhaps what we'll do is we'll pick up a little bit with that on the other side of the break. But let's go back to the studio, have a little break, and we'll pick up our life threads on the other side.
Okie dokie.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lyons, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
Hi, this is Pamela Foland. Check out my new book, Megan the Pet Whisperer, available at Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. Please visit my website, www.pamelafoland.com. You're listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network.
Taking God on Patrol is a first-person account of the world of law enforcement from the perspective of a Christian police officer in the fourth largest city in America. From speeding car chases to the crossing of the thin blue line, author Mark S. Cariner seeks to find God's biblical truth in a behind-the-scenes look at law enforcement. And check out Mark's newest book, The Tactical Heart. Both are available at Amazon.com.
Hi, this is June Trope. Check out my new book, The Deadliest Sport, available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. And please visit my website, junetrope.com. And you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indy Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
You are listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. For a transcript of today's broadcast, download the archive and then write down everything they said. Now back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
And there'll be a test later. Thank you, C-Man, for that wonderful advice. I am Michael Lyons.
And I'm Margaret.
And welcome back to the second half hour of the Soul of the Everyman show. Tonight's show is life. It's not for the faint of heart. And I think, Margaret, the first half hour, we were talking a lot about life missions and sort of the fact that we as souls sort of agree to come down here. But I think everyone finds, there's an echo of truth in that. You know in your heart that feels true. It's not, and this isn't one particular life viewpoint or one particular religious viewpoint or whatever. There are people who believe in incarnation, don't believe in incarnation, whatever. The idea, though, that your soul, the eternal part of you, the spirit eternal part of you, that is in a limited incarnation, even if you say, well, I don't believe in reincarnation, I don't believe in one incarnation of a unique me. Yes, but you've got some things you have to work out down here. And when the Buddhists talk about the sort of the endless cycle of karma, or is it dharma? I forget.
Karma.
Karma, dharma. You see, Margaret knows all these things. She keeps it all straight. I can't keep it straight. So at the end of the cycle of that thing, you're developing and changing and growing. Well, even if you say, well, I only have one life, one physical life and one physical spirit within that life, you have to grow and change throughout your life. You have opportunities, you have choices. And I think the choices are the most important thing. We were talking a little bit last half hour about the fact that the situation you're put into, and it can be as life altering as having a child that's sick, or as insignificant perhaps to anyone else except you as, well, do I help this person or don't I? Do I, I have a choice in front of me. Which way do I go? It's always important at those points in your life when you have choices to realize that there are three things. There is a right choice. You can make that choice. And you can't default. You can't not choose. In other words, the choice of doing nothing is also a choice. There isn't a, well, push. There isn't a, I'll take A, I'll take B, or I'll just sit here. No, just sitting here is also a choice. You have to choose to engage. You also have to choose not to engage. You have to choose to go left or to go right. All of those things matter in the Buddhist way of thinking about it. All of them build up karma. All of them change who you are and your relationship to everything else in the universe and other people around you is all built up in the choices that you make. So given that we have a life here, whatever the span is, you've got to prosecute that life with courage, with heart, with the ability to realize that your choices matter. Every single blessed one of them matters to you and to others, but mostly to you. Your choices are important because they matter to you. They change who you are. They change your life path.
Mm-hmm. It's whether or not you are actually expressing what has been laid in your heart. Because when you come down here, that purpose is laid into the core of your being and written in your heart, as well as whoever it is that you may be participating with. Because the people that you wind up interacting with are usually those that reflect back that same frequency, same vibe of I choose that which will bring love into play. Because I believe I said that to you before. I believe we're down here to learn about love and what it means. It's not just this human concept that we want to say, oh, well, love is, you find your significant other and then you have this interaction or whatnot. It's like, no. Love as an energy is a vast, vast thing. And it is a being state, and it is the very essence of life itself. So to begin to take steps in that, expanding your concept out of a mental box, and I always see a shoebox when I see mental concept, by the way, but the vastness of your being on what love is much bigger than a shoebox. In this lifetime, you will be given opportunities and experiences to choose to participate in love or not. That simple. And when you can render it down to that, participate or not, and it's participating in love, mind you, okay? That not, most people think, okay, it'll be easy if I just choose not to participate in that. But you must understand that you've decided you are not walking in love.
And I think the problem is that that word love is used for so many things. The love that you're talking about isn't necessarily the love that people think about. It's not the Valentine's Day, hearts, cards, puppies type of love. It's the kind of love that drives a parent to sacrifice for their child, or the kind of love that drives a person to sacrifice themselves for another.
Right.
It's also the kind of love that brings two people together so intimately that they can't be separated. That the the old saying of dying of a broken heart, that when one of them would be injured or pass on, that the injury to the other, the psychic injury, the physical injury to the other is so great that they could also, through this loss, feel their life force also be broken. They might also lose their physical life. So love as a force, as an eternal sort of universal force, is much greater. Aspects of it, of course, are in everything. I love to eat pasta, but I mean, the little itty bitty loves, the love like that, or the love of puppies, kittens, and so on, is just the tiniest sprinkles of what the true word, or the true emotion experience.
The all-encompassing aspect of it, and it's exceedingly intimate. When love is not intimate, then it is a limited love. That's the truth.
Yes, and I think to the extent that you can, as a human being, move towards the unconditional love, I think it's unattainable in this state, truly unattainable, but it's something which calls to us, each and every one of us. And to kind of go back to the theme, it requires great courage. Life and love are intimately intertwined as forces. It takes courage to live. It takes great courage to love. And I think you can through love realize that it actually encompasses life rather than the other way around. Life doesn't encompass love. Love encompasses life. Mm-hmm. Because you can lose your life. You can continue to love those who are no longer in the physical.
Yes.
And the relationship is even greater in some cases.
Love continues even after death. And that is something that you would have to take as a truth for yourself. In your heart, you know that's true. And it's unshakable at that point. But to attain an unconditional love, as human, you cannot do it. As human alone, you cannot do it. You must be intimately entwined with your divine life force, your spirit, God, that which is eternal, for you to be able to attain unconditional love. Because I think I said this to you before, as a human, I have an opinion, and I have lots of trouble loving the unlovable. Lots of trouble. Okay?
And I think we truly, as in the physical, I don't think we can attain it. I think we can aspire to it.
We would have to go through a resurrection cycle.
Yeah. And if you look at, there are many philosophies, but Buddhism is one where the state of total enlightenment is also a disembodied state. The state of oneness with all, or the state where you have become one with God, is also sort of a disembodied state. I think think that the progression down here reaches a point where you can't go any further into the unconditional love, because you do, as part of the physical, no matter how close you get, you have to cross that barrier to get into the unconditional. I think the physical is also the conditional, no matter what, because cause and effect.
This physical body is well entrenched into the physical, the
conditional.
Corporeal man, that is conditional. But we are more than that. And the idea, the fight always is allowing your spirit aspect and that which you know is much greater than the physical to come together in harmony and in balance. That's the fight we have down here.
Yes.
Where do you reside in this fight? Is your impulse just to take care of yourself and your concerns the only thing that motivates you? Or are you willing to allow yourself to learn to say that I really don't know? I mean, I find that that is the very first step, is for you as a human being, a man, to say, I don't know. The mental pride that we have as human beings is quite large. And you want to make up stuff that you don't even have an answer to. Okay? Just, you see that. You see the impulse. This is where those little white lies come in as small children, you know? And to understand that that is a foundational part of what this physical body does. But your job as a human being is to balance the spirit and the body aspect as well as the soul. And that is a full life.
Indeed.
Right there.
Indeed. And I think if we go back a little bit to what we were talking about before, our topic was life, but you know, we always circle around a lot in the soul of the Everyman, and we've really circled back around to love, because love does encompass life. And in some ways, when we say life is not for the faint of heart, it really comes down to that life lived in the being state is in essence to expand, to bring the heart to the fore, to using the heart as the metaphor for the eternal love, for the unconditional love. If your heart expands to the point where it encompasses your life, rather than the other way around, where your life encompasses your heart, where the physical has trammeled the heart, has made the heart into something that you can hold between your hands and put into a Hallmark card. That's life holding the heart. But now, when the heart holds your life, then you realize that your life is something which you can spend with love and not even regret it. I gave my whole life away, everything that I thought was important, in the service of love. And is that a life wasted? No, that's a life lived.
Right.
But you live it by losing it. You live it by realizing that it isn't, that your life is not all what you are. It's, you know, it's not all about you and your life. It's all about love and your life within it. And it's, you know, people say, oh, well, that's great. I can't do that. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, you're right. It's very, very hard. It's easy to say, hard to do, like most things. Living with love as the external portion, the actual eternal, unconditional love outside your life is hard, because then you thought the choices were hard before, then the choices get really hard. Okay, then you're given choices like my life and everything I want to do, or the other. And then your heart, which sits outside your life, says the other. And then you still have the choice, yes or no. You know, the heart doesn't force things. The heart will not force your life into into a place or into a channel or make you do things. But
Like
it will.
Your heart doesn't bludgeon you.
No.
Your brain bludgeons. Your ego bludgeons you.
Yes.
But your heart does not. And it will tell you true.
Yeah.
Right? Your ego will tell you anything you want to know as long as you're listening to it. The truth.
It's true.
But your heart will tell you the truth, whether or not you want to hear it.
Mm.
And therein lies the choice. What reality do you want to live in? Do you wish to participate in a reality that will continue to teach you about something greater than you, about love? Or are you wanting to put love into this little basket that you can just carry around and take out whenever you want to look at it?
Shoebox.
Yes. So small. Is that your concept of what love is? Because that's comfortable.
And I think that therein lies, the two great points that you put there, two wonderful points. The first one is that the heart whispers, that the heart voice is one you can, with your mind and with your life and head, you can ignore. And the heart will just be there and say, okay, I gave you the truth. You wanted to follow the head and all the things it said. Okay. And your heart, to the end of your life, which your heart encompasses, to the end of your life, it will give you those. If you ask, it will tell you. That's the openness. That's the, I have a choice. Your heart will tell you this. And every other 10,000 voices in your head will tell you something else. And many 10,000 things. The heart says one thing. Should I do this? Yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
Your head will give you, Forbes says that fish futures will be up next year, so you should do it. And then this guy says, and it'll have 10,000 things that all the different advices and your families and every other little blessed thing. That'll be all head voices and 10,000 of those. But your heart will just whisper yes or no.
Mm-hmm. And do you follow?
You follow, and do you trust? Because the heart whisper yes, and then you say okay. It may not look, as we mentioned earlier in the first half hour, that road less traveled or the heart road may look very, very discouraging.
Yes. But the converse is true as well, It may look like it's all roses and wonderful and everything's going in the way you want it, and when you're there, it just goes straight downhill.
Yes.
Or
it's empty.
And to be truthful, honest with yourself, and saying, you know what, this is not what I thought it was. I mean, you have to want to be absolutely honest, brutally honest with yourself.
And that's where the courage comes in there, because
Mm-hmm.
that's the other thing, as you mentioned, the head will do. The head will lie. It'll convince you that you're right. Yeah, that'll be fine. And
let's be reasonable. You tried everything, and we did all this, and it just didn't work out. So, why don't we try one more time, and let's change this little thing over here, and let's see if that'll work.
Right, that's the head voice, all right.
And you sit there and you go, okay, so I'm wasting time here with this thing. This has no answer.
That's the key. I think that you hear a lot about people having sort of an existential midlife crisis, whatever. And what it really comes down to is that if you follow those head voices long enough, you come to a very empty place. And at that empty place, they will still be doing exactly what you just did. Mm-hmm. They'll be saying, "Oh, it's okay, it's all right, we've tried blah, blah, blah." And they don't get softer when they're wrong. They get louder when they're wrong.
Well, they try to.
Right. The head voice. They say, "Well, we were wrong, but maybe if I just say it, let's say it louder. it'll be fun the second time."
Say it faster or say it louder. That's usually what you get. There was only one time that I remember that head voice was completely silenced.
What was that?
It was a very significant point. Okay, this is after we had gotten Christopher's diagnosis of cancer. And I sat there and I said, so what do I do now? Because I was thinking, oh, well, you're going through all these wonderful, we could try this, and maybe the tests were wrong, and maybe it's this other disease, or maybe this other doctor. I took that head voice right in front of me and said, okay, what do we do now? And we looked at everything. It was utter silence because it was so completely out of its depth. There was no pat answer. Okay? And what I thought was significant was, well, let's just look up all this information and see if we can figure something out. Okay? The immensity of it hit you. I don't know anything about cancer research, treatments, nothing. And that was the only time there was silence from the head voice. So at that point, I just said, well, you have nothing to offer. It's true. So I went deep internal to where I reside, at the heart. All right, Lord, what do we do now? Show me. Because this is beyond me, so beyond me. There are no words of how far beyond me this is. I trust you. Where do I go? And whenever the head voice wanted to start up, I just, the emptiness, that vast emptiness, I just threw that right back at it. Because you had nothing to offer.
This is a wonderful point, and we brought it up a couple of times earlier. I'll just re-emphasize it. What happened in that moment, because it was so significant and so out of the element that you had known and we had known, was we reached the end of ourselves. Now, reaching the end of yourself can be reaching the end of your life, but sometimes it's just reaching the end of the head voice's ability to spin and to talk and to do all these things. So look, I'm out there now where I have no
foundation.
Got nothing. We're falling through
Free fall.
Infinite space, free fall. The heart is still with you there. When the head knows nothing and it's got nothing to add and all it's doing is gabbling or silent, the heart's right there. The heart's like, nope, no problem, because it encompasses all that. It's been sitting there all along. It has never left you. It's never out of answers because it doesn't look for answers. It looks for truth. Yes. And you can't handle the truth most of the time. None of us can. But the truth is when you reach the end of yourself, the truth is still there because it's outside of yourself. You reach the end of what you think you can do, completely to the end of where your boundaries you thought lie. And guess what? There's more. It's outside of you, and you have to realize that, hey, even though I'm done, there's plenty more out there.
Completely at the end. And it's rather interesting being at the end of yourself. Because no, it is, because you really realize that all that head voice stuff was only this one piece.
Yeah.
It wants to pretend that it's everything, but it's this one small piece. And when you manage to get it not to say a thing, you get to look around and go, hey, look at what's here.
Yeah.
This is amazing.
And yes, and sometimes it takes crisis, and sometimes it takes years of training to silence the head voice. That's what a meditative state is, because we all have it, but the head voice loves to make as much noise and confusion as possible because it loves the chaos, it loves the spin.
It's the ego, and it has to do with power. It wants to be in control. The heart voice has nothing to do with that. It is far greater than that.
And the courage to silence the head voice is what brings you to the heart and to the end of yourself. And so life is not for the faint of heart. Life is for those who listen to their hearts.
Mm-hmm. To live, yes. To live means that you will listen to your heart.
And since we're at the end of this episode of The Soul of the Everyman, thank you very much for listening to our hearts.
And have a good evening.
Have a very good evening.